everybody, and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, and this is my friend Red the Fox. Hello there, everybody. And today we're going to be discussing early hockey games. The first game we're going to discuss today is Video Olympics for the Atari 2600. It was released in 1977 and was programmed by Joe Decour. Although, to be perfectly honest and realistic, it really wasn't a hockey game. It was actually a few different variations of Pong. But for about the next 4 years, this was all you had. So you can see how you're trying to knock that dot into the net there, I guess. Thank you, Red. It wasn't until 1981 that Activision created the first and only ice hockey game for the Atari 2600. And it was called Ice Hockey, programmed by Alan Miller. Alright, in this game you have 4 different variations. Game 1 is you versus the Activision computer, regular action. Game 2, you versus a friend, regular action. Game 3, you versus Activision computer, high-speed action. And Game 4, you versus a friend, high-speed action. Now, as you can see, with the limitations of the Atari at the time, they were only able to make pretty much a one-on-one game, except for the goalies, of course. But it turned out pretty nicely, I think, and I had many hours that I enjoyed playing this game by myself and with friends. Now, here was an interesting patch. All you had to do was beat the computer on Variation 1. You didn't even have to take a picture, but you had to have a friend watching you play, and they had to sign the letter saying they witnessed it. You sent in the score, and then you got the All-Star Hockey Team patch. Did you ever get one of those? No, I got the game years later, so. In 1987, Intellivision released Slapshot Super Pro Hockey, which was a follow-up to their NHL hockey game that had been released in 1979. The main difference between this game and the original was that this one had a 1 or 2 player variation. Okay, now in this game you got 4-on-4. You got the ability to pass and hit the thing really hard. Now, one thing I like about this game, and I'm going to have to be honest with you, is the fact that you got more than just 1 or 2 players out there on the field. You got a real actual goalie. You got enough people to pass the thing to. I really enjoyed it myself. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people sometimes like to trash the Intellivision because of the sprites. I don't have a problem with the sprites. Oh, I don't either. In my opinion, I believe that Intellivision games were about fun. Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes the ports weren't the greatest. But, the games, you cannot ever say that Intellivision games weren't fun. And I would honestly have to say, too, that they made the best sports games from that time period, and this game is proof of that. Alright, so let's head back to the arcade world. In 1984, Bally released a game called Hat Trick. Now, honestly, for an arcade game, I liked the game, it was fun, but, here we are back again with that one-on-one and a goalie like you had in the Activision ice hockey game. So, and another thing, now somebody else pointed this out to me too, is the fact that the players are a little too big for the ice hockey rink they're playing in. But yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you don't have a lot of room to play around there, but again, you only got 2 real actual players out there on the ice. So. Now, believe it or not, the game was actually ported out to the Atari 7800 in 1987. So here is Hat Trick, programmed by Jack Sandberg. Now, one thing I'll tell you right away is that, charge kind of gets a little annoying there. But other than that, I mean, if you're looking for a game that's pretty darn close to a copy of the arcade, you got it. I mean, you got a 2-minute game here that you're playing. You can set the difficulty levels. And, I was a fan of the controller that you used for the 7800, so I personally enjoyed it and had a lot of fun playing the game with myself and with some of my buddies. So you've been a hockey fan all your life. Oh, yeah. Where I come from, everyone's a big hockey fan. Okay. Well, that reminds me of today's trivia question, and it is, When the NHL was established, what was the name of the very first hockey team? You think you know the answer? Wait till the end and see if you're right. All right, let's head over to the world of 8-bit. Now, in 1988, Nintendo released their own hockey game called simply Ice Hockey, so let's check it out. As you can see, the action is pretty fast-paced. It's a fun game that has the 1 and 2 player variations. It has the cool music that you expect from the NES. I always liked NES music, that they put with the games. That's one thing that always stands out in my memory. Oh, I totally agree. Now, one thing I have to say here, or admit I should say, is the fact that I only recently discovered this game. There was another NES game that I actually prefer, and that would be Blades of Steel. So let's check it out. Now, this game was released the same year, 1988, as NES Ice Hockey, and this one was programmed by Konami. Interestingly enough, they both focus on realism as far as, gameplay goes. But one thing I really enjoy about Blades of Steel is that you have the commentary that is in the game. And probably my most favorite aspect of this game is when you get in a fight on the ice, whoever loses the fight actually has to go in the penalty box. So yeah, check that out. And there he goes, right off to the penalty box. The referee drags him in. But it's, really realistic. You have regulation size, arena and playing field. It's not too easy, but yet it's not so difficult that you're not going to want to play the game over and over again. So I would definitely put this game in what I call the play it again game. It's fun to play by yourself or with a friend. My best friend in middle school and high school had this. I personally didn't own it, but every time we got together, we would play this game and have lots of fun. So. Now, one thing I did not know at the time was that the NES Blades of Steel game was actually a port of an arcade game that had been released a year earlier. So you're looking at the arcade version of Blades of Steel. Very fast-paced, a fun game, and the commentary is a lot clearer and actually will say, whatever your team name is. And of course, your team name is only 3 letters, but depending on how many quarters you chuck into this thing will depend on how long your game actually is. I really enjoyed it. It's just too bad that I didn't discover this game at the time when I was a kid. Playing sports games in the arcade was usually not something I did. Most of the arcade games I played were platform, adventure, fighting games, etc. But this is one that I really would have enjoyed playing, especially with my best friend Keith. We would have probably had a lot of fun, although it probably would have cost us quite a bit of money. Alright, since we're in the arcade right now, we are. Well, we're discussing arcade games. Oh, okay. Since we're there already, let's go ahead and talk about our final game today that was manufactured by Williams, and that was Hit the Ice from 1990. Now, this game here was just pretty much a fighting and beat the crap out of your opponent kind of game. In this one, you are these really mean hockey players, and you're trying to play hockey as usual, but this one you can hit. There are no rules, basically. You can beat him with the sticks. You can actually hit the goalie so hard that it knocks him and the goal back. I mean, it's a brutal game there, I tell you. If you're into games like NBA Jam, Arch Rivals, and that pigskin football game with the Vikings, you're going to love this game. I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted there, don't you know, but in the early 90s, they did like to put out a lot of violent sports games, so this game is pretty much just a sign of the times there. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that the full title of this game was Hit the Ice VHL, the Video Hockey League. And in videos where we have multiple games, we have to have at least one prototype. It's just kind of a rule. I mean, if there is one to mention. But in this case, believe it or not, the prototype is the NES port of this game. Okay, now this port of Hit the Ice is slightly different than the arcade version because you have the option of playing a regular one-on-one game, but you also have what's called a quest mode, in which you are trying to help build up the team, win tournaments, win matches, and it actually combines elements of RPG with sports, which was actually something very, I won't say revolutionary, but very different from that time period, as RPG games were kind of becoming the in thing with the creation of the Final Fantasy games. Yeah, but one of the problems with this game, and I believe the reason it wasn't released, was because it was supposed to come out in 1993, which was actually a year after the Super NES came out. So I don't really understand why it is that some game developers were still making games for the regular NES after the Super NES came out. Yeah, and they actually did make a port of Hit the Ice for the Super NES, but this version here with the quest mode and all that extra stuff was never released. However, it has been dumped and it's pretty much readily available all over the internet. Another thing that's interesting is when you think of prototypes, you don't probably think of the NES as having prototypes, but yes, in later episodes, we're actually going to have episodes dedicated to NES unreleased prototypes, and there are quite a few of them, more than you probably think. One port that was released, and probably my favorite port, has to be the version for the TurboGrafx-16 that was released in 1993. As you can see, the TurboGrafx-16 port of this game was pretty much identical to the arcade. Same attitude, same brutalities, same smacking everybody around, and same hockey game. So I would honestly have to say that I think this port is probably the best of this particular game. And the answer to today's trivia question: what was the name of the very first NHL hockey team? And the answer is the Montreal Canadiens. They were first founded in 1909. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Classic Gamer 74. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give us a great big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. In our next episode, I will finally be able to show you the interview that I did with the guy who created this character. Well, I'm Anthony Gamer, and I'm Red Dot Fox, and we will see each and every one of you in the next episode. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye. Bye, everyone.